Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar presentation titled NCLEX is Not Enough. I hope that you will find the information shared today to not only be interesting, but to also be helpful and useful to you, regardless at what stage of your U.S. immigration journey you may currently be on. My name is Ron Hoppe. I'm the CEO of WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions, and as always, it's my great pleasure to be able to join you and spend this time with you today, sharing information, engaging with you through a question and answer. As always, we welcome your comments using the chat feature here. So please feel free to submit any questions that you might have, any comments. We'll do our very best towards the end before we wrap up to respond to as many questions as we can. Also, I would ask that if you would just take a moment as we get started and using the chat section, just let us know which country you are joining us from. We always find it very interesting to see how many different countries are represented on these presentations that we do. So if you take a moment and please do that, would certainly appreciate it as well. As I've mentioned, we do welcome questions. That's a big focus and a big purpose of these presentations is to be able to respond to your questions, to hear your feedback, your opinions, perhaps. Maybe you don't have a question, but you have a particular point of view. We certainly would welcome the opportunity of hearing that for certain. I've had the opportunity over the course of the last month to travel extensively around the world, and I'll just say very, very quickly that my visit to Ghana, my visit to Kenya, and just last week, my visit to the Philippines, all were very, very great experiences. Had an opportunity to meet many different candidates, many of our applicants, perhaps even some of you that are on this presentation today. It's always a thrill and a joy for me to be able to interact directly with each and every one of our candidates. The topic for our presentation today, NCLEX is not enough, might seem a bit of an odd topic just on the face, because NCLEX certainly is a very vital part and a very vital requirement of being able to initiate and complete your journey, your U.S. immigration journey. But what I wanted to share in our time together today is really the things that you need to be focused on, not just to get a job offer from a U.S. employer, but to put yourself in the very, very best position to get the best possible opportunity for yourself. And in order to do that, yes, you do need NCLEX, but there's certainly other requirements as well. And that's what we want to spend some time looking at in our time together today. So with that introduction, we'll jump right in. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So just to sort of set the stage and to give some perspective of the state of the international nurse candidate pool at the present time. I encounter candidates regularly that have passed the NCLEX exam, and they think that passing the NCLEX exam is going to, on its own, give them the opportunity to choose exactly the geographic location where they want to work, the exact hospital they want to work at, even down to the neighborhoods that they want to live in. And that's great. Having those type of aspirations is great. But just for some perspective, yes, there is an urgent nursing shortage in the United States, and many international nurses are hired every year. But the fact of the matter is there's also the largest number ever of international nurses from all around the world vying for the same positions and the same opportunities that you may be interested in. So just to give some perspective, in 2023 was the all-time record high for the number of international nurses taking and passing the NCLEX exam at just right around 55,000. That number seems to have come down a little bit in 2024. We won't know the final numbers for a while yet, but just based on the numbers for the first 2 quarters and what we've seen heading into the third quarter, we think the numbers in 2024 are going to be down a little bit, but still at historically high levels at about 40,000 international NCLEX passers in 2024. And at the same time, the number of new U.S. grads is at an all-time record level in 2023, and we expect that trend to hold in 2024. I mentioned U.S. new grads because that's going to be an important point that we're going to explore a little later on in our presentation. And what is it that U.S. employers are looking for? Particularly the top tier U.S. employers are looking for in international candidates and how that relates to new grads here in the U.S. So we'll explore that a little further in just a moment. My point is here not in any way to be discouraging to anyone, but it's simply to acknowledge the reality that yes, there's many openings, hundreds and thousands of openings for international nurses in the U.S., but there's also a very robust supply of your nursing colleagues from around the world that are interested in the same positions that you may be interested in as well. So again, back to the theme of today, how do you put yourself in the very best position to get that opportunity of your dreams, so to speak? How do you get that opportunity in the clinical area that you're hoping to work in? How do you find an opportunity perhaps in the geography that you're interested in? And how do you find an employer that's really going to welcome you, support you, and put you in the best possible position for your continued career growth and development? Next slide, please. So again, when we talk about NCLEX not being enough, I don't in any way want to minimize just how important NCLEX is. And I think most of you will probably be aware of the following points, but I want to just quickly touch on them. NCLEX is going to be required for your application, your resume, to even be seriously considered by top employers. Without NCLEX, right? Without NCLEX, no employer is able to file a visa application for you. And employers in the US, particularly those that have some experience with international recruitment, that have worked with international nurses in the past, the first thing they're going to look at is, has the applicant passed the NCLEX exam? Because without NCLEX, we can't file a visa application. The employer can't file a visa application on your behalf. And for everyone involved, the employer and you as the candidate, a major question and a major point of focus is, well, what is the processing time going to be? So taking and passing NCLEX, step number one, if you are serious on embarking on an immigration journey to the United States. So super important, taking and passing NCLEX. That's really the minimum that has to be done to get you on the playing field, so to speak. So taking passing NCLEX, it's important in order to have the top U.S. employers consider your application. It's required in order to file a visa application. Having a job offer from a U.S. employer isn't enough. You can have one job offer, 2 job offers, 10 job offers, but unless you've passed the NCLEX exam, those job offers aren't going to do you any good. And then last but certainly not least, NCLEX is also required for RN licensure. Without taking and passing NCLEX, it's impossible to become licensed as a registered nurse in the United States. Next slide, please. So what else are employers looking for? If NCLEX is kind of the starting point, if it's kind of the baseline requirement that just has to be in place, what else are U.S. employers looking for? And I would summarize sort of their top priorities as follows. These aren't necessarily in a particular sequence, but this is what I would consider to be aside from NCLEX, the next 3 most important things that U.S. employers are looking for. One is English language skills. How are you able to communicate not only during an interview, which is super important, but in that interview, your potential employer is also assessing your English skills in context of how might you be able to communicate effectively with their patients or their residents who themselves at time of illness or at a certain point in life might have certain difficulties communicating themselves. So certainly English language skills, particularly spoken English language, is a very high priority, and we'll come back to that and talk about that more here just a little later on in our presentation. Clinical problem-solving skills. Now, I did mention earlier that there's an all-time record high number of new graduates here in the U.S. And that's in a way good, but it's also very limiting. Any healthcare provider, a hospital, regardless of whether it's an academic medical center, an acute general hospital, subacute hospital, a long-term care facility, the most urgent need that they have for nurses is nurses with experience. They have an ample supply of new graduates, but you cannot staff the majority of any department with new graduates. It doesn't work. You require nurses that are able to provide oversight, including direction, supervision, mentoring even. And all of this comes back to experience, and with experience comes clinical problem-solving skills, right? And clinical problem-solving skills come from bedside experience. Now, I appreciate that in certain parts of the world, this has become a very, very complex topic where large numbers of registered nurses have left working at the hospital bedside and are working in various different settings, including business process outsourcing operations, perhaps in utilization review, various other forms of remote nursing work that, while it may have a nursing focus, is removed and detached from the patient at the bedside. Now, I don't want to give the impression that if you're a candidate that is in that circumstance where you're currently working away from the bedside, that you have no opportunity. There are opportunities for you, but increasingly those opportunities are going to be more limited than the opportunities that your colleagues will have who are currently working at the bedside. Again, the number one thing that U.S. employers need and are looking for as they utilize international recruitment as part of their overall staffing strategy is nurses that have 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 years of experience, even, that can make a very meaningful contribution to their nursing workforce in a relatively short period of time. Now, if you're not currently working at the bedside, my encouragement to you would be to investigate what opportunities you may have to, in fact, gain some bedside experience or return to the bedside, at least on some type of part-time basis. Maybe you've had 3 or 4 years of hospital experience, but you've been working for the last 3 or 4 years or 5 years in some sort of a BPO type of setting. That experience from 6, 7, 8 years ago is obviously good. It's helpful, but a U.S. employer is not going to place the same weight and the same importance on experience that is 7 or 8 years in the past in relation to current experience. And again, I want to be very sensitive and acknowledge that there's perfectly legitimate motivation and reason for some nurses to choose opportunities for themselves other than at the bedside, primarily economic reasons. I acknowledge that, I respect that. But the focus of the conversation and the discussion today is, how do you put yourself in the best possible position to get the best possible opportunity for yourself in the United States? And that is, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's full-time, whether it's on some part-time basis, ensuring that you're doing whatever you can to have some current bedside experience on your resume. Okay, next slide, please. So, with all of that being said, and remembering that there's many thousands of international nurses also interested in living and working in the United States, what are the things that you can do, right? What are the things that you can do to make your application stand out and stand out above all the other resumes that an organization like WorldWide HealthStaff might be receiving on a daily basis? So the first, very most important thing, if you have passed the NCLEX exam, you need to indicate on your resume that you're an NCLEX passer, that you've passed the NCLEX exam. It would be helpful to indicate the state for which you took NCLEX and the date, at least the month and the year when you actually did pass the NCLEX exam. So the reason this is important, obviously, we talked about the importance of passing NCLEX, but increasingly, organizations such as ours are using various types of very advanced technology to help screen and initially evaluate and rank the many hundreds of resumes that we receive each week. And this technology is actively looking for the phrase NCLEX, NCLEX passer, USRN. And if those terms don't appear in a resume, it's possible that technology may in fact screen out your resume. So if you have passed the NCLEX exam, that's something to be super proud of, something to celebrate, of course, and please be sure to call it out on your resume. If you've passed NCLEX last week, last month, 3 months ago, and you haven't yet updated your resume, please do that immediately. And if you have submitted your resume to WorldWide HealthStaff in the past, maybe before you passed NCLEX, and now you have passed NCLEX, please send us an updated resume so that we can put you in the pool of NCLEX passers that are receiving priority consideration from us. I talked earlier about the importance of English language skills, communication skills, and really the very best thing that any applicant can do to develop their English language skills is really very simple, and that is speak English all day, every day. Speak English to your colleagues, speak English to your family members. Try to the best that you're able to be watching whatever entertainment you're watching in the English language, whether it's television or movies. Simply practicing English all day is the very, very best thing that you can do to develop your spoken skills. There's no class, there's no course, there's no video that is a substitute for simply practicing English as much as possible each and every day. If you're working elsewhere, apart from being at the bedside, as I've mentioned already, returning to some level of bedside experience, even if it's just in a local hospital, maybe 2 shifts a week, 1 shift a week, 5 or 6 shifts a month, if you're unable to return to full-time bedside experience. And then lastly, if you are currently working at the bedside, don't stop, don't leave. Appreciate again and respect the reasons why nurses do that. But as much as it's within your control and ability to do so, if you are currently working at the bedside, my strong encouragement to you is that you continue to do that. Next slide, please. And then the other thing to do and to prepare for, right? You've updated your resume. You're working on your English language every day. You've got some level of bedside experience that's hopefully current. So then the next step in the process is preparing for your interview with an employer, excuse me. Now, before I get into the details of this, I should have maybe even inserted another slide ahead of this one. And that is not just preparing for the interview, but who is it that you're going to be interviewing with, right? If you've been on any of our prior webinars or presentations, you almost certainly will have heard us talking about the benefits of direct hire international recruiting. And I would just take a moment here to emphasize again that in pursuit of the best possible opportunity for yourself, it's vitally, vitally important that you understand the differences between direct hire and contract staffing or contract labor or staffing agency hiring. Both of them provide an opportunity for you to live and work in the United States, but the path that you would take to arrive in the United States, particularly from an employment perspective, is significantly different. and your employee-employer relationship that you will have when you arrive in the United States is going to be significantly different as well. So I'm not going to dive into that topic in much greater detail, other than to point you to our website, healthstaff.org. And if you go to the applicant section, you will find some free resources there that explain the differences between direct hire and the staffing agency model. Really important that you take the time to educate yourself on this topic, because it will have a dramatic impact on your future. The objective, I'm sure, for each and every one of you is not just to find a U.S. opportunity. It's to find the best U.S. opportunity, the very best opportunity that you can have. And it's only the direct hire option that puts you in control of the process, where you are fully aware of who your potential employer may be, even before you agree to an initial interview with them. So again, if you're not well versed on the differences between the different models, I implore you to spend even 15 minutes at healthstaff.org in the applicant section and make sure that you have a solid understanding of this topic. So having done that, now the time has come where you've been presented with information on a specific employer, and you've been told, we think you would be a good fit for this employer. You know the name of the hospital or the name of the facility that you'll be interviewing with. You'll know about the type of position that you're being interviewed for. So now, how do you have the best interview that you've ever had? How does your interview stand out from any other interviews that employer might be doing, probably even on the same day, right? So here's just a couple of tips to help you have the best interview ever. One, get to know the employer you are interviewing with, right? At WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions, we always provide our candidates with a client fact sheet that tells you about the client, their facility, the type of services they provide, the type of positions that they're hiring for, as well as sharing with you information on the community in which they're located, giving you some insights on the size of the community, the types of resources and amenities you'd find there, a glimpse or an overview of the climate over the course of a year. Get to know your employer that you're interviewing with. If you're interviewing with us, you'll know who that employer is. Spend some time on their website. Get to know the services they deliver so that you can engage at an entirely different level during your interview in comparison to someone who's just kind of showing up to see what happens. Don't ever do that. An interview is a serious opportunity. Get to know the employer that you're interviewing with before your interview appointment. At the time of your interview, it's really important that you find a place to do the interview that is free from distractions. This might seem like a very obvious tip, but it's, from my experience, not obvious to all, right? Interviews are generally scheduled in advance, so hopefully you can adjust your work schedule, for example, if that's needed. But I've seen examples of people trying to do interviews while they're driving in their car. I've seen people do interviews from a storage closet at their hospital. I've seen applicants do interviews from all kinds of interesting places where there's lots of noise, traffic noise, other distractions in the background. For your benefit and the benefit of the employer that's interviewing you, and to give you the best opportunity to be successful, do your very best to find an interview location that is free of distractions. Next, come to the interview rested and focused. This is somewhat related to my previous point of being in a location free of distractions. If you're in a place where you're worried about other people walking in, where there's lots of background noise, lots of other activities going on around you, these are all distractions that will prevent you from being properly focused. And as much as possible, come to the interview well rested. If you've just worked 3 night shifts and you've just gotten off the 3rd night shift 10 minutes ago, you're probably not going to be mentally and physically at your best. So again, as you're scheduling interviews, do that with consideration for work schedule and other obligations that you might have, so that you have every opportunity to come to the interview well rested and fully focused. And then last, I know that interviews sometimes can be, or at least appear to be somewhat intimidating or daunting. That's really not the case. Obviously, the employer wants to get to know a little bit about you as an individual. They may ask some questions, just brief questions about your educational and work background. They may not spend a lot of time on that because that information is on your resume, and they can find that information there. They may be wanting to learn about you as a person. Why did you choose nursing? How would you handle certain, or how do you handle certain situations in the work setting? And be prepared to engage with your interviewer in two-way dialogue. As much as the employer wants to learn about you, this is also a great opportunity for you to learn about the employer. Maybe you could ask your interviewer, what is their motivation and why are they working for that organization? What do they enjoy most about working there? You can ask questions about the community in which the facility is located. So please come to the interview not thinking that this is some form of interrogation. It certainly is not. And to the extent that you can engage your interviewer in two-way dialogue, this is another way that you can make yourself stand out from some of the others who don't or aren't able to do that. So get to know the employer that you're interviewing with, interview in a location free of distractions, come rested and focused, and feel absolutely free to engage in two-way dialogue. It is entirely appropriate to do that during an interview appointment. Next slide, please. So we're going to wrap up here, start to summarize some of the things that we've been talking about. Again, I see many questions coming in. Thank you for those. I have a colleague who's on the webinar here with me. He is monitoring your questions, and he's going to lead us through our Q&A session here in just a few moments. But please, any further questions that you may have, please pass them along through the chat section, and we'll do our very best to respond to as many as we can. So getting the U.S. job of your dreams, okay? Not just settling for some opportunity that comes along that you're not really sure about. Maybe it's with a staffing agency you don't know, they can't tell you, or they won't tell you where it is that you may be placed. Getting past all of that and getting the U.S. job of your dreams, number one, most important, pass the NCLEX exam. Until you've passed the NCLEX exam, a lot of the other things that we've talked about today really don't even come into play. They're not relevant, because without the NCLEX exam, it's not possible to really move forward. Hone your English language skills. Your English language skills may be good, but there's always the opportunity to develop those skills even further. And if you are lacking confidence in your English language skills, then this is obviously a super important thing for you to be focused on. The ability to communicate is insurmountable. It's essential. And it's, again, in the interview process, employers are evaluating English language not only in the context of their ability or your ability to communicate with them, their ability to understand you, your ability to understand them. They're also evaluating how it is that their patients that have a variety of conditions may be able to communicate with you as well. So regardless of your English language skill level, make a personal commitment to your future and to your success by focusing on honing and developing your English language skills even further. Ensure that you have some form of clinical bedside experience, very important. And then lastly, come to your interview prepared to win, right? If you've focused on these previous 3 items, there is absolutely no reason for you to think that you're going to be anything but successful. Come with a positive attitude, come with an open mind, and come prepared to win, and come prepared to succeed. Next slide, please. All right, so with those thoughts, I'm gonna stop there for the time being. I'm gonna invite my colleague CJ to join us here. And CJ, I know you've been following the questions that have been coming in. So I'd ask if you'd be good enough to kind of kick off our Q&A session with our first question, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ron, and thank you so much for the great presentation. So let's start with our Q&A session with this question, and this is from Tay. This is about NCLEX. So how about for those who pass NCLEX in California but don't have a license yet because of SSN deficiency?
So passing the NCLEX in any state, including California, is a great accomplishment, right? Now, if you've passed the exam in California, there's a couple of things that we need to consider, but generally speaking, we would be able to work with you. It's a bit more of an involved process, but we would be able to work with you to become licensed in another state. We do have a very experienced licensure team that will work with you. It's a bit more of a process. Candidates really haven't been taking NCLEX in California for many years, so I take it this candidate took and passed the exam some years ago. So we just need to know a little bit more of the details of that specific case, but certainly we would welcome that application, and our licensure team would carefully review the circumstances and advise what the steps forward may be.
Thanks, Ron. So our next question is about English exams. So this question is from Brian. The question is it okay to apply even without finishing my English exam?
Yes, so with WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions, that's absolutely acceptable. We regularly not only accept applications from people that haven't yet passed NCLEX, but we're also filing immigration applications for individuals who haven't yet passed the English test. If in our evaluation, we feel that their likelihood of doing so on a first or perhaps a second attempt will be successful. So is it okay to apply without English exam? Emphatically, yes, it is.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Next question is from Ria. What type of visas can we apply for, as my husband will need to work too?
So for an individual from outside the United States who is looking to live and work and have a spouse that's able to work as well, I think far and away the very best visa option is going to be the Permanent Resident Green Card, or the EB3 visa. The EB3 visa application It includes the immediate family members of the primary applicant, immediate family members being spouse and unmarried children up to the age or under the age of 21. When that visa application is completed, everybody in the family receives their green card, visa, permanent residency status at the same time. And that status allows a spouse to work for any employer in any occupation. So the short answer to the question is the best visa category for this particular individual would be the EB3 permanent resident green card visa option.
Yes, that is correct. And for Ria, as a testimonial, I am my wife is a worldwide health staff nurse, and I'm included in the visa. So I'm working with the company. So we're kind of on the same situation. All right. So next question. Let's go with this one, Ron. With the upcoming release of the next visa bulletin, what are your predictions for the priority dates? And additionally, do you think the results of the presidential elections could influence the processing dates and overall immigration policies?
So, Roger, thank you for that. Those are really two huge questions. So, and I'm happy to address both of them. First, let's talk about the visa bulletin for a moment. As I'm sure most of you viewing this presentation are aware, the visa bulletin is published on a monthly basis, and it gives a current estimate as to the processing times for current processing times for visa applications. We saw some very positive movement in the October 2024 visa bulletin, as expected. And then in the November visa bulletin that came out maybe 12 or 14 days ago, we saw that the date didn't move forward, but it also didn't move back. My opinion only, with regards to the visa bulletin, because nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But my thought and my expectation is that the visa bulletin is going to move forward slightly in the next coming months. We would hope that either by December or January, it would have moved forward as far as March of 2023. I think that's a real possibility. And then what the visa bulletin may do beyond that, we're entering into the realm of speculation. But let me just take another moment, because this is a super important topic with regards to processing times. And it's obviously one of the most common questions that we get, how long is the processing time? Processing times and visa bulletin dates fluctuate from month to month. They fluctuate from year to year. And we just recently did a project here at WorldWide HealthStaff where we plotted on a graph the visa processing dates and retrogression dates going back over 10 years. So looking at this quarter by quarter over 10 years. And over that time, at times, the processing times have been very, very long, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, even for a while. At other times, at the latter part of the pandemic, immediately after the pandemic, the visa bulletin was current. Current didn't mean that visas were being issued, the same week that an application was received. It was still taking 10, 12 months, even when the visa bulletin was current. So I do have a point, and I'm going to get to it, and it's this. So we all want the processing times to be shorter. We want the visa bulletin to be more current. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of what the current priority date is and the visa processing times, unless you have a visa application that's filed, your processing date is infinity, right? There is no end in sight. And while the whole process takes too long, the very good news is the EB3 visa process is very well established. It's very stable. You know, how that program works really hasn't changed in 30 years. And the fact of the matter is, if you have a visa application that's filed, properly filed with a legitimate employer, you have a virtual certainty of receiving a visa. But until you have an application that's filed, right, you're not going anywhere. So I sometimes get the question that says, well, the processing times are 30 months. Should I wait until the visa bulletin becomes current before I apply? The answer to that question, and it's a reasonable question. The absolute answer to that question is absolutely don't wait. Applications are essentially processed on a first come, first served basis. That's the purpose of the priority date, right? An application received today, all things being equal, is going to get to the point of having a visa issued earlier than a visa an application that's filed a month from now or 2 months from now. So I just want to make that point. We think the visa bulletin is going to get a little better, but if you haven't yet started your immigration journey and you're concerned about the processing times, until you file an application, you don't need to be worried about processing times because you're never coming. So the most important thing is get an application filed, but make sure it's with the right organization, the right employer. And then it could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, could be 30 months, but you can have the full confidence during that time of knowing that a visa will be issued to you. Okay, long answer to a short question, but I think it's an important point. And then second point of Roger's question is, do you think the results of the elections could influence processing dates and overall immigration policies? The short answer to this question is, I don't expect that the outcome of the election is going to impact immigration policy positively or negatively for at least the first 12 months following the time that a new administration comes into place. We're actually, and CJ, correct me on this, we're actually doing an entirely separate webinar just shortly after the US election, I believe on November 13, where we'll be speaking about this exact topic. At that time, we'll know what the outcome of the election is. I'll be joined on that presentation by some political insiders and also others that are very closely connected to the immigration policy discussions in Washington. So certainly invite everyone to join us on November 13th for that presentation. But, you know, not knowing what the outcome of the election is, my thought at this particular time is that in the short term, I don't expect to see any changes, significant changes, regardless of the outcome of the election. Now, there's some nuance to this, and it's always possible that something may happen. But again, just here we sit before the election. It looks to be it's going to be extremely close. But we are going to take a week or so to digest the election results. And then we're going to do a separate webinar presentation on that topic and hope that you'll all be able to join us then as well.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, you're correct. We will have that webinar on the 13th of November. And yeah, that's it for our Q&A session. And for those questions that we didn't get the chance to answer, please, you can reach out to our live recruiters and they will be more than happy to answer all your questions. And as Ron mentioned, we have our upcoming webinars. Please like and follow us on Facebook. So next week, we will have like a great employer webinar. And the week after, we will have the webinar that Ron mentioned for after the US election. So I'll also put the link on the chat for our Facebook group. And also to remind all of you that we have this Refer a Nurse program, that if you have successfully referred a nurse, you will earn up to $250. So I'll also put that on the chat. Okay, so any last thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, CJ, thank you for that. Again, if you look in the chat feature, CJ mentioned the ability for you right now to connect live with one of our recruiters. If we didn't directly address your question, so you just click on that link, healthstaff.org/live/or-chat. You can do that right now and have your question answered rather. Again, the best way to keep up to date on upcoming webinars is to follow us on Facebook. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn, but here you'll find information on opportunities coming up. I see a number of questions about, do we need social workers? Do we hire social workers? At the current time, we do not. But that is a possibility that we are considering going forward into 2025. So thank you again for your time today, for your interest. I hope that the information shared today is helpful to you. We've tried to share this in a way that is encouraging. It may be challenging in some ways, but hopefully encouraging as well. We want you to be successful. We want you to be able to obtain the best possible opportunity for yourself, for your family, for your future. That's our commitment here at WorldWide HealthStaff Solutions. We appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you, and we look forward to connecting with you again on another one of our webinar presentations. Thank you.